Hi guys, myself Himanshu and I'm an Android developer at Scientific Games, also your today's host for this session, Decoding Kotlin, the modern way to build Android apps. And before I begin, I would like to thank DSC KIET for organizing this session. So without any further delay, let's have a look on today's agenda. So here I'll be discussing about Android ecosystem in brief, followed by the modern approaches which we have for building applications, that is native and hybrid approach. And generally we prefer hybrid as cross-platform as well. And later on I'll be focusing on native development using Kotlin. And in the end I'll be doing some live coding, building some Android applications. So let's see what exactly Android ecosystem has. So as we know, Android operating system is owned by Google. It is actually powered by Linux, and around the globe it is adapted by 86% people, which is a huge number. And this operating system supports mobile phones, tablets, watches, televisions, IoT, and even cars today. So one more good thing about Android is it is completely open source, so we can have a look onto the Android, like the operating system code, and we can also contribute to it. As I was saying that Android operating system is built on top of Linux kernel, let's have a quick look on how exactly it is. So here we have the application layer on top, which is our actual app, which is running on top of Android framework, which is nothing but our operating system. And below to that we have a few set of libraries and Android runtime, which provides an interface so that we can access the resources which is required by our application, which is requesting to our operating system. And we have an HAL, which is hardware abstraction layer, which isolates all the available hardware resources present, which is accessible via kernel. The hardware resources could be your microphone, your camera, your fingerprint sensor, etc. So we are here we are. So did you know over 2.5 billion devices run Android? So which is a good sign that we have to start building Android applications today. So let's see what exactly native and hybrid applications are. Starting with hybrid, so we say that hybrid applications can be like we can support multiple platforms from single code base itself. So with this we don't require extensive knowledge on platform specific languages like Android or iOS. For if you're building for iOS, then we would require knowledge on Swift and Objective-C. Otherwise, if it is Android, and we need knowledge on Java and Kotlin. But here in hybrid we don't require such knowledge on multiple languages. Instead we can have multiple products for different platforms from single code base itself. So why should I prefer hybrid applications? So as we are building from single code base, we are actually using the same code in multiple platforms. Also with this we are actually saving our cost, which is involved in developing that application, which is also quick in development, and it saves a lot of time, which we say in shorter time to market. So it quickly reaches the market, as we do not have to extensively work on multiple platforms, and in the end it is easily maintained. We can easily maintain and deploy it. So what this means is like if we have any bug or if we want to include any feature, then we can easily include in that single code base and easily deploy it. So what frameworks are required here? The topmost framework is Flutter, which is hot and is a product of Google again, and followed by the React, which is a Facebook product, and we have other frameworks also, which is Ionic and Xamarin. So if you're feeling that we have to switch to Flutter, then you have to learn Dart language. So what are native apps? So as native apps are optimized only for specific platform, that could be Android or iOS, but for these we require knowledge on platform specific languages that could be Java, Kotlin, or Objective-C and Swift. So why should I prefer native? We say that native application are these are platform specific, so it has high performance because there is no third-party plugin or some middleware involved in the development, so that it is supporting that applications. So it is actually has higher performance, and we say that it has consistent look because we are using some as it is native, then we have consistent look over the system as well as in our application. So generally we use there's a material theming, so it is actually already embedded in your Android system itself. So if you see your settings, then it would look similar, like your dialogues and all, so it would look similar as your application. So it doesn't feel that you are switching to some different application. It looks as one thing as a whole, which gives a user a good experience. So one more thing which we say is quick access to new features. What that means is, as it is a platform specific, so any new feature which is coming up to your device and which is quickly integrated and which is easily available to your audience. So once it is released in public, your audience is ready to use that features as well. So as again we say that it has better compliance with App Store, because we are focusing on particular platform itself. That could be either App Store or Play Store. So let's see what exactly programming languages we require. So here we have the traditional way, which is built using Java, and another way which we have and which is now recommended officially by Google is the Kotlin. So we'll be seeing further how these works. So in summary of native and hybrid, so here we can see that for a project, if we are developing through native approach, then we require multiple teams. That could be Android, iOS or web team. So they would be developing the product individually and on multiple platforms, so which are high in performance, but it involves a lot of cost. So here in hybrid, we only have one team which can develop for multiple platforms like iOS, Android and your web. So I hope it is clear by now what exactly hybrid and native apps are. And we have another fact that market share of Android smartphones in India is 95.6%. That is actually a huge number. So let's see what exactly native application. So we have a quick look on what exactly natives that we are developing for platform specific. Let's see what languages, and we have a deep overview on this Kotlin language. So we say that Kotlin is a statically type. What this means is whenever we are we say that type. So whenever we are writing some, we are declaring some variable, like suppose if we are declaring it as integer and we are assigning it a string, then it is actually a type inference. So these things, such typos are detected at the compile time itself, which prevents few crashes in your application. And Kotlin and Java are object oriented, which means we use like a method called indirect approach. So we have some objects for a class, and with that object we can access all the methods and variables throughout the class. And Kotlin is also open source, which means that we can again see the code and we can also contribute to it. And what multi-platform development is, so Kotlin also support multi-platform, which is like it also shares some code between iOS, Android, and we can have development using like the client server platform also. So we can use Kotlin to develop some client server features using Kotlin also. So long story short, it supports multiple platforms like Android, iOS, client server terminologies also. So why should I prefer Kotlin and Android? So one thing like which we say in Android, that it's a $1 billion mistake, that is null pointer exception. So frequently, like the most number of crashes which are reported in Android are due to null crashes. So with Kotlin we can actually prevent these null, we can prevent, and it does not allow a user to like have a nullable variable. So so in order to have a null variable, we have to explicitly say that we have to use that question mark symbol, so that it says it accepts null also. So we say it is concise. So one good thing which we have in Kotlin is, if we compare Kotlin with Java, then we say that if you write some 5 lines of code in Java, then it is around 2 lines of code in Kotlin, which is saving around 50% or 30% of your code. So there's a lot of reduction in your code, which is easy to understand, easy to decompile it or debug it. So it is interoperable also. So what that means is we can actually access. So in a case if it is like your project has already built on Java, then you can continue working on Kotlin with that. So you can access the Java methods from Kotlin class as well. So Kotlin is interoperable with Java. So what lazy loading is, so whenever we are loading an application, so we are initializing all the variables present in the views. We are loading all the variables in the view, so which like which is consuming a lot of memory. So here in Kotlin what it does is, so with we have a lazy function, so what with which we can do is like it can initialize the variable only when the variable is initialized, like whenever the variable is accessed by some function or method, only then that variable would be initialized. And we say we have a special function called extension, which says like if you want to include some additional functionality to system functions, like in Android if you say if you want to hide a keyboard and if I want to perform some animations to it, then I can write my own extension function which hides my keyboard as well as performs some animation to it. So that makes Kotlin easier, like it is easier to understand and easier to write. So let's see quick examples of Kotlin and Java. So here I was saying that we have an extension function. So here like I'll explain that fun, that function is a short term for function. So integer is like we are using an integer, so integer dot add. What this says is this function accepts a integer and performs something on this. So what it is, so we have that function, like the thing which is derived is after the equal symbol, that is this plus 5. So whatever variable you pass, whatever integer you pass would be added with 5. So here if we see an example, so here I'm passing that print 2 dot add. So 2 is an integer, so what it will do is it will add 2 to this function, so like it would be 2 plus 5. So in the end it would return, like it would print 7. So let's see, it is not only applicable to integer but it is also applicable to strings. So let's see how exactly it is possible. So here I have a function string dot modify. So this means I'm taking a string and it will internally, like it is performing some action, that is it is modifying. So it is not mandatory that it has to be modified, you can name it whatever you like. So but make sure it is little readable. So here what it is doing, it will take this string, that is this dot to uppercase, and this to uppercase function is from the system. So what it will do is it will take some string and it will convert it to some uppercase. So let's see with an example that so here we have that I'm saying print on a new line, that is print ln. I'm passing the string as DSC KIET dot modify. So what it will do is internally it would call this function which I have declared, which is an extension function. So it would take this string, that is DSC KIET, and it would modify it to, it will convert it to uppercase. So in the end it would print DSC KIET in a new line because we are using print ln. So let's see in Java and particularly to Android. So if we are having like in Java it is object oriented. So here if you want to declare some button and have to use that button resource, then we have to declare that button object. So here I'm saying that I have a button which is derived from this button class, which you can see here on top left, and my object name is my button. So I'm saying that my button equals, and this find view by ID is an Android method which actually finds your UI which is present in the XML. We'll be seeing this up in later as well, like how it is exactly finding these IDs. So here I'm referring that it is r.id.mybutton. So here in our UI part we would be referring like it is the ID which I have assigned here, so which is my button. So once we have reference to that button, we can set a click listener to that, with which, so when with this click listener, so anytime that button is pressed it would easily respond to it. So this method is overridden, so like it is performing some action, so we can handle here on this on click. So if we see that same thing in Kotlin, then if we see that same thing in Kotlin, then it is simply my button which is the reference in actual UI and directly set on click listener. So my button here in Kotlin is referenced via synthetic binding. So here we can easily handle that click. So let's see one more thing. So one more thing, like here if we are having some model class in Kotlin, like Kotlin and Java, then if you see in Java, so we should have like variables which it is accepting, like it would take a name and an age, but we need to access those, like we have to set those and we have to get those. So we set there, like we'll have their getters and setters as well. So but here in Kotlin, if we see, we only have to use a simple terminology called data, in like it's a keyword which is data. So once we have that, Kotlin internally will have all those getters and setters, and we can easily use that model class to access all the variables. So here it is actually, you can say that there's almost 50 to 70% of code reduction, which is a good thing. So null safety, as I was talking, that it's $1 billion mistake, and Kotlin does not allow you directly that the variable should be nullable. So here if you see some examples, so here for nullable thing, I'm saying that var name, which is of type string, and I'm putting a question mark symbol, which says that it could be null, and we can assign that as null in future also, because here I'm referring to as var, which is a variable which can be reassigned as well in future. So what non-nullable type looks like, so here you can see that var name of type string is Kotlin. So here if I try to assign it as null, then it is not allowed and it would throw me an error. So with this we can actually identify like null pointer exception, which is $1 billion mistake in the early stages. So here we are. So we have another fact that over 1.5 million developers write code using Kotlin, which is again a good thing. So let's Codelabs and let's quickly jump to the playground which we have. So to practice that, we can visit play.kotlinlang.org, which is an official IDE which is compiled online. Let's have a quick look on some Kotlin functions. So let's try those. So I'm starting with, so here fun is function main is the entry point of the execution of program. So I'm trying to print something which is hello world, and let's try to execute this. So if I execute this, it is saying that hello world. So if I print something to it, print ln, so hello DSC. So if I use print ln, and again I have something on new line, hey. So let's execute that. So as you can see, for once it executes this first line of code, which is hello world, it would print that hello world here, and as it is not a new line, so it would attach that to the same, like it would continue from there itself. So we can see that hello DSC is again to the side of hello world, and once we say that use print line, so it whatever coming next to it would be print on a separate line. So here we have seen how the print statement works. Let's see some Kotlin functions also. So I'll say val name, okay, val age of type int equals 5, and if I of 5, and if I print that, print age, let's see what it is saying. So it says 5. So if I try to, like, if I say now, if I reassign this one like age equals 10, then let's see what happens. So it says val cannot be reassigned. What this means, as we are using val, so we cannot reassign this in later stages. So whatever, if you are sure that this variable would not change in future, then we can use val, otherwise variable would be preferred. So if I run this now, then it would print me 10. So it is as expected. So let's see the same with strings as well now. So var name of type string, which equals hello Kotlin. So now as it is a variable, and if I try to print that, so print name, so I can see it is printing hello Kotlin. So what if I tried as it is a variable, then I can reassign it, but let me try what it would print if I assign it as null. So I will execute it again. So it says null cannot be a value of non-null type string. So here it says we have string, but it is non-nullable. So it is not allowing me to have some null variables in later stages. So what I can do is, if I can have this operator, question mark operator. Now if I execute it, it would allow me to have null variable also. So here we can see that it is now null. So let's try some extension function as well. So here I'll be declaring my function. So fun, I'll be starting with string again, string dot I'll say change case. So we have this function equals this dot to uppercase. Two uppercase or even lowercase would be fine. So if we use lowercase, which is a system method, so here we are using lowercase, so whatever we pass to this function would be changed completely to lowercase. Let's try that as well. So I'll declare a few variables, as I know that it would be constant throughout the app. So I'll say Kotlin first, so Kotlin, and okay, I know that it would be, so I'll make it uppercase everything, and I'll have another variable, so some good name, like we can say their age. I can say no, age cannot be taken, so we can say that we can take some other field like address, which is of type string. So I'll put this like only the few lower combination of uppercase and lowercase. Let's see. So it would be like New Delhi. So now if I try to print this, let's see what happens. So if I say print name dot to lower, no, not lowercase, change case, and if I try to run this, let's see what happens. So it says it has converted all the uppercase string to lowercase. Similarly, it would be same for okay, so print same for the New Delhi string. So let's try that as well. Print on new line. I'll make this also to be printable on new line. So I'll say address dot change case. So it is quite easy, so that we can call that extension function and perform as many number of times we can. So let me run this again now. So it has converted, as you can see, it has converted all those, like whatever were in uppercase were converted to lowercase. So that's it from this Kotlin session. Let us switch to this Android Studio and start building applications. So let's open our Android Studio. So it is running now as expected. So let me tell you that before, like to run Android Studio, we require at least 8 GB of RAM, and if we have a storage, then it is fine. We can install SDKs as well. So I'll start with a new project. So I'll name it as, okay, it's opening. So I'll start with empty activity. So for every project we have some activity linked with it. So we have some UI as well as the activity file for it. So I'll name it as DSC demo1 demo Java, which would be clear. And the package name, you can see that it would be something like in reverse order. So if you have some URL like dsc.com, then it would be com.dsc and your application name. So here I'll be selecting Java, and you can see there's a minimum SDK drop down from which I'm selecting Lollipop, so that it has to run on Lollipop devices. So it says that our application would run on 94.1% of devices. That is actually good. So I can click finish. It is preparing the environment for me so that I can run the application. So with this, the starter project will, like we have a starter project, in that we'll be getting a UI part which is named as activity main.xml, and another the backend code which we write in Java or Kotlin, which is named using .java or .kt extension. As we can see, it has opened this and it is setting up the project. So we can see this, it is building the Gradle. So in the meantime, like it would prepare the environment. In the meantime, I can connect my device. So I'm using ADB here. So I can disconnect it safely. So I'm using this ADB using Wi-Fi. So now our environment setup is done. So now let's have a look onto this project structure quickly. So here we can see, if I close this project structure, we have something called app here, and we can see there, like if we expand this one, we have something called manifest. What this does is exactly, so we have all the configuration, like whatever the configuration we have for the application, that could be our activities, which we can see here that it is saying something. We have activity that is main activity, and it also says that we have some intent filter, that is the main, and it is of type launcher. So whenever we are launching this application, so this manifest has all the information which is required by the application. It also stores information such as the services which we are using and the like internet permissions, other storage permissions and all. So here it is like the main activity is the starting activity and the launcher one. So whenever we are running the application, the main activity would get initialized, and we can see something here like it says extends app compact activity. What this does is provides backward compatibility, so that now we are using application for lollipop level devices. So if with this it would execute, it will try to execute, and it would mostly it will execute to the devices which have lower version of Android. That could be till Gingerbread, I can say. So let's have a look on to this directory like which says Java, and we can see the package name which we have set initially. So I'll open this main activity, which is our own class here. So here we can see that we are doing something called override on create. So it is a system defined method and it is a life cycle. So like for every activity we have a life cycle. So it is from on create to on destroy. So in between it would have something stages called on start, on resume, on pause and on stop. So whenever like we are interacting with the application, the respective methods would get called, and we can see here that most of the functions we say like super dot on create. So it is initializing with the like the parent class which we have, and override annotation is used so that we are like having our custom implementation on top of the on creates functionality. So what we are saying is we are telling that it has to set content which has the layout activity main. So activity main is our actual UI part. So if you can see here, if I press this split button here, then I can actually see my code as well as the UI part here. So for this UI, like whenever the application is launched, main activity would get like created, and this activity file which is a layout file would get initialized with all the variables which we have, variables and views. So let's see this later in depth. So we can see here we have something called Android test. This is usually used for instrumentation test, or what we call as integration test, where we require actual physical device or emulator to test whether that functionality is working proper or no. And we have this directory called test directory, in which we will be writing unit test cases. So if you want to test particular functionalities, that could be a method one or something else, we can include that here in this directory. So whenever we are building a final APK which is about to like which we are releasing to public, these directories will not get compiled, like it won't be shipped with your application. So only the files which we have, like the activities or the fragments and other services files which we have, the model classes and everything, would come from this package itself. So it would pack everything into our application and it would be ready to use. So here we can see there is something called res, which is resources in short. We can see there are few packages, like again we have drawable, layouts, mipmap and values. What this drawable does is we can have all those drawable items, like for this UI view we can even have images and other sort of images, like other views. So we can have our images here, which like it supports XML. XML is like most efficient way to have an image. So like it is scalable as well as it occupies less space in your project, and you can even use PNGs, JPGs and other files also. And here we can see there's something called layout directory. So like in short, everything is organized here. So we can see all the layout related items are in activity main, all the like images are in drawable directory. And let's see what exactly this main activity main is. So here this is an UI part, so it has an extension .xml. So we are using this XML language for defining our UIs. So here we have mipmap, which is setting our launcher icons. So we can even have our custom launcher icons, and we can set it from this manifest. You can see here it says icon Android :icon to use this mipmap. So it is indirectly referring to this mipmap and it would use the same. And we can also see that it has some label called app name. So it will display whatever the name we have. So we can even set other properties like theme, which again tells which has the style, like the app theme, which is in this styles file. So here we can actually set the colors and the other like theming part of the application can be handled from this piece, like this file. So here we can also see that we have something called Gradle scripts. So for now, module level would be enough for beginner session. So we can see something called, we have this Android, like, and in that we have this default config, which says which actually defines our app package which we are using for application, and the minimum SDK to run on, and the target SDK version, which is the latest R. And here we maintain that version code and version naming. So if you see that we have some applications with the versions like version 1.0 or version 2.2.2, like something like that. So we can have those version naming here itself. So I can say 1.2.1. So, and once I've changed this, you can see that it says Gradle files have changed. So everything, the Gradle files are changed, then we have to sync it so that our project is properly aligned. So it is now building as the files were changed. And this important piece of code is the dependencies block. So if you want to include something, some third-party integration or additional some libraries, like for Kotlin we have this Jetpack components, so we can directly use those libraries and integrate, so that we can boost our development work and quickly put it into production. So we can easily use those functionalities from this dependencies block of code. Like we have to include those library here. So let's see the UI part now. I'll close this project pane. So here you can see I'm in this split view, so it is showing me both UI as well as the code. So here we can say, okay, I'll put this in new line. Okay, now it's fine. So here we can say we have something called constant layout, which is actually the parent. It is occupying the whole view length, so view length and width. So whatever your screen resolution is, the whole length would be occupied this constant layout. We do have other things like linear layout, relative layout, but constant layout has a unique functionality, like you can easily drag and drop and give the constant so that you can quickly develop the UIs. So here if I try to add some button now, let's see. Okay, before to that, let me tell you that we have some, like before, like as this is an Android UI, so we use this Android attributes. So it starts from like the namespace. First we have to declare this namespace, which is done with this XML namespace Android. So it would include all the Android related attributes in your UI part. So here we have something called tools, which is actually useful for development purpose only. So whatever we use like for tools, like the attributes which we use for tools is only for development and will not be visible in your final application APK. So when you are running application, it has something attribute with tools, it won't be displayed. For example, now we can see that it is Android text, and if I replace this with tools, then we can see here that it is visible, but if I run this application, then it won't be visible. So one more thing we can notice here, that for every view which we have, so for constant layout, which is a parent layout, we can have some child. So not some, we can have any number of child, and we can even nest those. So we have this thing called, like we have a view called text view and button view and many other also. So with which we can utilize our UI, so we can made our UIs. So here we have text view and for every UI we can have, which is a mandatory attribute, is the width and height. So I'm saying that its width is wrap content. So what it means is whatever the length of this text is, it will only occupy that amount of space. If I add hello world and hello DSC, it would occupy that space itself. And in order to distinguish it properly, I can give a background color. I can use black so that it would be visible. Okay, yes, now it is visible, and you can see that it is occupying the space which is required. So if I add some additional string, then it would automatically expand that as well. So here I'm removing this background attribute also. So we have the layout, width and height ready. So if we have other attribute as match parent, which will occupy the whole length. So you can see here it is taking whole parent view, because we are telling that it has to occupy the parent size. So let it be wrap content. So what additionally we can do is we can increase the size by using this Android text size attribute. I can say 16 sp. 16 is the normal size, and sp is the scale independent pixel. scale independent pixels, we can say. So whenever like we have different screens, so like we can have a Android device which has a smaller screen or a tablet which has a larger screen. So based upon that screen level, the Android would automatically convert your text size, which is equivalent to 16 sp. So so the text is now big. Now I can even make it 32, which is extra large. So now I guess it is clearly visible. So we have these constraints. We can see this like for every view we have 4 constraints, one on the top and on bottom and on both of the either sides, like left and right. So if I remove one of those, then this constraint would jump on top. So I've removed the bottom constraint, so it is moving on top. So it is something like an elastic. So we have this constraint layout, and we can quickly build these UIs. So let me add a button also. Let's see this. So I'll add a button which has to occupy a limited amount of space using wrap content. I'll give the text as click. So again we can see there's some error. What it says, like this view is not constraint. So as it is in constraint layout, I have to constraint this widget. So I can simply add this like this constraint. So I have added the either sides constraint to the parent and the top one to the top of parent and bottom one to the bottom of parent. Now if I want this button to, like this text view to be below to this button, then I have to modify this constraint. So I can remove the top constraint from here. So I'm removing this top constraint and instead I'm giving to this button. And if I remove the bottom constraint, it would simply go towards the button side. So it looks little clumsy now. So I can add this margin attribute. So I'm using layout margin, so it would give margin on all sides, which the 4 sides. So I'm giving normal margin, which is 16 dips. Now we can see that it says something hard-coded string. So what we can do is, as I said, we have strings here. So for our UI part, so I can add my string here. So I'm adding a string called click. So with these resources, so whenever like we have multiple buttons and we are using same resource, then we can easily refer to the we can easily refer these resources by using at string slash the resource name, which is our click. So any number of times we can use a string and anywhere in our UI. So we have if we change here in one place, it would reflect everywhere. So wherever you are using in all of the views. So here we have only one activity and one UI part, and in other projects, like in bigger projects and real world projects, we have multiple activities and the UI parts. So it has all automatically it has reflected. I am reverting it to normal again, so it would reflect that as well. Now that error is gone. So what I'll do is, so I want this button to respond to unclick. So what I can do is, in my on create, so as it is an initial, like it would be initialized whenever our application is launched, I'll have a instance of button. So I'll have this, I'll call this click button. So I'm including that, importing that Android widget. So I can say click button, and I'm using this find view by ID, so that I can actually bind this, like I can actually bind this button ID with my resource. So I can use r.id.button. So what this will do is, it would reflect this button in our actual resource file. So here we can see we have this button. So I can name it uniquely. So I can say click button. Anything, it would be click also. So here I have to refer that find ID, which is equivalent to click. So now this button is binded to our Java file, which has this object. So whenever I use this click button, so it would indirectly refer to this click object. So I can have a click listener on this. So while the activity is created, we can have a click listener. So what this click listener will do is every time you click a button, it would constantly listen, so that whenever you are clicking, it would immediately respond to that. So I have this new click listener instance, and it has automatically overridden this method which is on click. Now I can simply show a toast, that would be toast.makeText. So I can give whatever text I like. So here I'm using the context that it is originating from activity, and toast is something which is like it is used to show some information on top of your UI for a limited amount of time, you can say. So I'll add some thing here like button clicked. So I'm telling that the length would be of shorter span, and I'm immediately showing. So what this will do is whenever you're clicking, like whenever the button is clicked, so its instance is here and this button. So whenever we are clicking this button, we have a click listener on it, and it would immediately respond to it, and this block of code would execute it. So we have on click here, so it would show us a toast. So let us run this and try. So I'm building this project. So once the build is done, it would run the application in my device. Let me set up my device. Okay, it is running fine. It says button clicked. So what happening is it is actually while creating this UI which is initialized, and it is setting a click listener to it. So every time the button is clicked, it would show this toast, which we say it is for a shorter span. So it says button clicked. So what if I want to increment some count in this text view? Okay, as I have changed this reference, I have to use the updated one. It is now fine. So as you can see here, it is tools : text, which is hello world. So it is visible here, but if we see our application here, it is not, because it is only useful for design time development. So now if I want to increment some count, I can do that as well. So I can have a counter, or I can set some text as well. So if so here we have this text view, but I guess we don't have this ID, so I have to assign some ID. So text view, so we have this text view, and in my main activity I'll be having similar to this text view widget, something called my text view, find view by ID. So it would find the ID with the ID text view. So once I have, so I can set the text my text view dot set text, and I can mention whatever I wish. So hey DSC. So whenever the button is clicked, it would set this text. So let's try this as well. So as you can see, there's a lot of boilerplate code is getting added here. So we can avoid this using Kotlin. So once we switch to Kotlin, we will not require these things anymore. Like we shouldn't have to initialize, and we can directly use the variables. So we see the, let's see the, so now I'll click the button. So it says hey DSC. So again, if I click this, so internally it is actually updating again, but as it is the same text, it is not, we cannot see it exactly. So but it is actually internally changing the text. So let me create the same project in Kotlin as well. Let's see how it is there. So I'll create a new project with the empty activity. So this time I'll name it DSC app 2, and I'll choose language as Kotlin, and I'm setting this minimum SDK level to 21 itself again. So it is now building project again for me, a new project. So again, this looks very similar, but a few things to notice here is that the annotations and other things, like those things are actually avoided. Like it is doing the same functionality, but that has been concise, like it has been reduced a lot, like you can see. Let's have a look with this button as well. Let's see that. I'll close this pane. So I'll have the button here again. Okay, this time let me try with the UI part. So I'll switch to design tab and I'll select a button here, and I will align this button here on top. So I'll quickly do this. I'll align these constraints, and I'll delete this text view so I can remove the constraint. So see, we can see here that it is actually writing code for me, and if I remove the constraint from here, so if I remove the top constraint, even that is removed now. So if I want to add, I can, like, in short, we can have a combination of code plus like design development. We can do that as well. So I'll use this constraint bottom to top of this button. So this would, so okay, let's see the constraint bottom. So I have to add vice versa, I'm mistaken, constraint top to bottom of this ID. So now it is aligned below the button. So it is looking little clumsy, so I'll add margin. So while I'm using this margin attribute, it will add margin on all the sides, left, right, and top, bottom. So I'm adding this margin, and the text looks little small, so I'll add text size attribute, sorry, Android : text size. And for text size, as we remember, we have to use scale independent pixels. So now I'm using SP 16 SP, or I'll make it 32, which would be more bigger. I have this button, I can have this text as click, and this time I'll be putting this to string resource directly from here by pressing Alt Enter and selecting extract string resource and pressing OK. With this, it would automatically add my string to this resource file, which we can see here. So you can see it has automatically added for me. So now I can work on, I have the IDs ready. I'll give one ID for this as well. So text view. So now here in on create, so as we are using Kotlin, so we can easily use synthetic binding. So I have to refer to this ID button, which was actually referred in this activity file. So it was button here. If I mention this as my button, then this should have to be again replaced with my button. So it is actually fetching that resource from this synthetic binding. So I'll set the click listener again, and this time I'll show a toast once again. So toast dot make text, I'll show a character, like character sequence, and the context is this, that I'm saying it has to be from this activity, and the message would be button clicked, and the length of it would be toast.length short, and I'm telling it to show immediately. So if I run this, let's see what happens. So I'm building the Gradle again. So, and if you don't have the Android device physically, then you can use an emulator by going through this Open AVD Manager, and you can set up your virtual device. Just make sure you have enough RAM, otherwise your desktop would crash. So it says that I'm missing some resource. So we have mentioned here my button, but we are using here button. So this is a compile time issue. I'll build it once again. So now it is executing. So here we have our click listener set. So you can see there's almost a lot of boilerplate code, like initializing the button, having it, binding it to the view has been avoided, and we can directly setting the click listener. And you can even notice that we are not overriding any on click method as we used in Java. Here you can see this is internally done by this lambda function. So it would automatically like, as this is a button, so it would automatically like perform some action whatever we prefer. So here it is toast, so it would perform a toast, like it would show a toast when a button is clicked. So it is installing the application. Let me switch to my mobile. So let's see it. So if I click this button, it says button clicked, and this is in Java. So you can see that app name is DSC2, and it is it is showing us a text. So I'll close this project. We'll be focusing on Kotlin now. So what how it could be possible, what if I can show some increment a count here whenever a button is clicked? Even that could be done. I can simply use tools :text, so it is not visible in runtime. So once the button is clicked, what I can do is I can show a count here or some text here. I can insert. So what I'll do is I'll have a reference of this text view. So text view, this is from our UI file, which is activity main dot text. Here, if you can see, it is showing some hint that from get text or it is set text. So at the runtime, Kotlin would automatically identify whether we have to set that text or we have to get text from some other variable. So here I'm assigning, so it would be like a setter. So I can say, hey Kotlin, and if I run now, so it would be like whenever we are clicking the button, this text view would be updated to hey Kotlin. Let's see that as well. So now we can see that as we were using tools, so it is not displaying anything, but once I click this button, it says hey Kotlin. So here we can see that it is responding to our button click. So every time I press this button, it would update the UI. So we may not notice as the string is same, but it is actually updating it again and again. So what if I can add edit text as well? So I can take user input. So we can use edit text for that. So with which we can use this. We can take their inputs. So I'll tell its width to match parent. So I want this to take the whole space of the view, but the height should have to be wrap content. So it shouldn't have to take the parent thing. So I have to align this now again. I'll only set the top constraint for this view. I can select this constant and align on top of this button. But again, this looks little clumsy, so I can add margin to bottom specifically. So I'm only adding bottom margin, which is margin normal 16 dips. As it is an edit text, we can even have a hint attribute, which we can say what to be enter. So enter your input would be the hint, and once the user starts typing, this hint would fade away. So again, it is a hard-coded thing. I can easily move to a strings resource. So I'm moving this to strings, enter. Okay, it is done. Now it says enter your input. So when I try some input, then it would automatically fade away. So now I can give an ID to it so that I can use it in my back Kotlin file. So I'll give this as input edit text. I can use this at. So we can refer to this later on. So let's see this in action as well. So once we click an button, we have to set text, right? So this time it would be a getter for it, like input edit text. Okay, it should be vice versa. So we are setting that text, so it would be edit text, input edit text, not text. So what it will do is whenever the button is clicked, it would take the text whichever is present in that edit text, and here this time it would be a getter. So it would get that string and then it would assign to this text view. Let's run and see this in action as well. So if I add some input here as login to my app, and if I press this click button, it says login to my app. We can enter any string which we wish, like it would update that. So if I see, it is login to m. So here it is like whenever the button is clicked, it is responding to that button click every time, and it is updating the text. How it could be like if you want to like increment a count every time we click the button. So we have a button already, and we have the text view as well. So here in my code file, what I can do is, okay, I can have another button. So I'll add a button. I'll copy this, but okay, I'll add a new button again quickly. So it height and width should be wrap content, and I'm saying text as count. I'm moving this to resource file, so it is moved to resource as well. I'll set the top constant to the bottom of this, and I can align this in center so that, okay, I'll give this constant as well. So with this constant allowed, I can quickly develop this. So I'll give another margin top now, so it would be applicable only on top, which is 32. I'll give large margin, so I can see it is now ready. So I can give ID, so some count button. Now in my UI part, like in my logical part, I can have this button referenced through synthetic binding on click listener, and whenever I'm clicking list, like whenever the button is clicked, I'm maintaining a count here, count variable. So I'm initializing it to 0, and you can see that Kotlin is smart enough that even though if I don't mention specifically that it is integer, it would automatically identify that. So even if I specify it as integer, it is fine, and if I change here to string, then it would throw me an error. But here, as it is 0, and if I remove this, it would automatically consider it as integer. So now what I can do is, whenever the button is clicked, I have to update this text view. So it is text view. I can get this reference, text view dot text equals count. But before to that, okay, so it says some error, it says type mismatch. So here we can see that it is a count which is of type integer, so we have to convert this integer to string while setting in our view. So now this, so what it is, so like whenever we have some count value, which could be anything, some in integer value, and it is converting to string and then setting it to this text view which accepts character strings. So before to that, every time a button is clicked, I have to increment the count. So I'll say count dot plus function, which is a Kotlin one. So whenever a button, this count button is clicked, it would first increment the existing count with 1, and then it would set to this text view. So let's see this in action now. So if I press this count, so it is increasing, so it is 1, 2, and it is increasing, so on. So now if I add some input here, hey, and if I click this button, so it is updating that, and if I click this count button again, it would increment this count. So it is like it is updating the same text view from two ways, like it is updating the text from the edit text as well as whenever we're clicking this count button. So where can I start learning? So if you're looking to learn furthermore, then you can prefer this Codelabs, which are available for free. That we can prefer this Android Codelab either in Kotlin and Java. Those are available. And if you wish for video lectures, then you can prefer Udacity. We have the same content like the Java and Kotlin content. And we have another course by Nate, which is actually good and beginner friendly. And if you wish to start with Kotlin first, and then you can prefer the course from Donn Felker. And if you again wish for some Medium articles, then you if you want to learn from articles, then you can prefer Medium. So we have a huge community there, and you can easily find that articles there. So I hope you guys like this session, and please go to this URL and give the feedback, and it matters to us. So and that's it from myself, Himanshu, signing off. So if you have any queries, then you can reach me out on Twitter and LinkedIn. You can find my Twitter handles here. Thank you so much.